All right, we're joined by one championships, Chatri Sityodtong, just to talk about the upcoming year. Chatri, how's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Like, obviously, getting you on before, obviously, a big year for you. I know you just announced the American date, so I guess we'll start there. Just me being in North America. Like, I know you wanted to get back. Like, how excited are you to finally have those dates finalized or want to be back in America?
No, we're super pumped. Obviously, America is the world's largest sports market. Our fan base is growing there. It's a rabid fan base. They love one. They love our athletes. So, very pumped to be back. And it took a little bit longer than we anticipated, just because we want to get our ducks in a row, because we're now in some major stadiums. These are the home. I think in Denver, it's the home of the Nuggets.
Mhm.
And then Atlanta, the home of the Hawks. So, we are playing in the big stadiums. I think these are 15, 20,000 seaters.
Did you have cities reach out after last year and express
Yeah.
interest? Like, how
Yes.
did that?
Yes. Yes. So my team hasn't announced it yet, but we have been getting approval state by state in terms of the global rule set, and it looks very encouraging. Again, like many states have already now approved it. I think just we haven't announced anything, but I think what you'll see is from September onwards, at a minimum, we'll be in the U.S. once a quarter, and
Mhm.
slowly build up to once a month. And yeah, we're really excited.
How has that been getting the states to, like, get with one's rule set? I know, like, every state's kind of a bit different. A lot of them can be difficult work. A lot of them are easier. Like, has it been trouble getting it approved, or has it been easier than what you thought?
Actually, it's been a lot easier. The numbers are now double digits in terms of the
Mhm.
number of states that have approved or in the process of approval. So I think it's just a matter of time before all states in the U.S. Approve.
Before we look into this year, like, just kind of reflecting on last year, how do you think 2023 went for one?
Last year was a record year in terms of viewership numbers, in terms of revenue numbers, in terms of every metric that we track, whether it's on TV viewership, whether it's average time spent, whether it's um, engagement and reach numbers on social and digital platforms. So it was a record breaking year for us. Number of events. And then this year, 2024, is on pace to be our biggest our biggest year in history.
Mhm.
Our revenues are on pace to double from last year, which we crossed around 110 million. I don't remember the final number. I think the final number is going to be in that 110 million to 120 million in revenue range. We expected it to double this year, and more importantly, is that we'll exit the year profitable. So that's it's a big milestone for us. But again, for the fans, we're throwing a minimum of 61 events this year, across Asia and the United States, and then a few other, and obviously Middle East as well. So we're extremely pumped. My team and I are super fired up.
I did want to give you a chance to talk about that. I know that one report came out about Qatar and just your whole finances for last year, saying like how you guys were losing all that money. Like, what is kind of your response to that whole article that came out about all that?
So I think for the last 6, 7 years, there have been, haters, naysayers, doubters, whatever you want to say, call it. But every year we hit a new record high in every metric, as I mentioned. So it's going to be no different this year. I think, Elon Musk went through it with Tesla, or Jeff Bezos went through it with Amazon in the early days. I think, it's just when you're doing things that are breaking records and making history, you're going to attract good attention and some bad attention. It's part of the journey.
Do those articles not really surprise you, or like, do you not pay much thought to them when you see them? Like, is it just you just kind of expect it at this point now?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's been going on for 6, 7 years, and again, we've been hit record highs every single time. I mean, so I would just say it's just part and parcel for the journey. It's part of the course. If you think about how much negative press, our biggest competitor, UFC gets, is the same thing, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you just got to roll with the punches, because you're gonna, at the scale we are at, We're the world's largest martial arts organization, and you're just gonna, at the scale we're broadcasting live to 190 countries every single week with the biggest broadcast partners around the world, whether it's an Amazon in the US, a Globo in Brazil, or Sky Sports in the UK, Bein Sports in the Middle East, and the list goes on and on. And it's just, yeah, I mean, when you're widely distributed all over the world, it's nothing is ever going to be 100% incredible PR. It's just part of the journey.
And then I did want to ask about, just because we haven't talked, or the last time we talked, that PFL and Bellator deal wasn't official. Obviously, that's a big thing in MMA. Like, what you make of PFL acquiring Bellator and kind of shrinking the whole competition for MMA a bit.
The reality is, again, if you look at, Nielsen came out with an industry report on the top 20 largest sports properties by viewership engagement numbers across TV, digital, and social. And if you look on that list, you can download the report from Nielsen.com. We were ranked number 4, number 5 in the world for all sports, and UFC was ranked number 8 or 6, I can't remember, in the world. And we were the only 2 combat sports properties in the top 10. And then, we've grown tremendously since that industry report came out by Nielsen. And all I can say is that in terms of viewership numbers, engagement metrics, across all platforms, in terms of revenues, in terms of anything, it's a global duopoly. Combat sports is truly a global duopoly, with the UFC as the largest player from the Western Hemisphere and one largest player in the Eastern Hemisphere. And we're the only 2 brands, by the way, that are above $1 billion in terms of valuation. So, I think the fact that we're not headquartered in the US and based there, I think where there's a lot of American media, it just, right now, the world seems to be very heavily focused on that. But if you look on a global scale, which Nielsen did that report, right, the numbers don't lie.
Do you think that is good for the sport, or like them merging? Because I know Dana, after one of the press conferences, said it isn't good for MMA, like losing one of those top guys. I've talked to some fighters. They don't think it's good just because it's one less option for agency. I know PFL has kind of said, oh, it is a good thing, them merging. Like, what are your kind of thoughts on it? Do you think that is a good or bad thing, them merging for the whole of MMA?
Like I said, I don't think it has an impact one way or the other in my mind. There might be a little bit, how can I say, a little hype, short term.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the actual impact, the scale of operations of both UFC and ONE, we're by far, and if you just, fans or media, if you just want to do a cursory check, look at the scale of our Facebook pages, UFC ONE, and PFL and Bellator, and then you'll understand that that's the exact same thing as the viewership scale around the world. So, we don't really pay much attention to our competitors. We really try to stay focused on, our fans and our business, which is very different from, the UFC.
And then one fight I did want to touch on is Anatoly and De Ridder. Obviously, De Ridder went up to heavyweight, lost. Like, was that always something that after he lost, like Anatoly made it clear he wanted to drop down, or how did that kind of fight come together?
I think this was a little bit more personal for Anatoly, because I think when RDR called him out, I think called him out at light heavy and then called him out on heavyweight, and there was a little bit of banter back and forth, and Anatoly took it personally, and so he's, I think, on a personal quest to take RDR's belts. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know, what's gone in exactly, but that's how the fight was made. They both wanted a rematch, and hats off to RDR, man. After getting blasted by Anatoly, I think most fighters would not be so readily available to accept a rematch, but RDR wants it. He's a warrior, a true champion.
And then another fight that really caught my attention was the Sexyama mixed rules fight, like against a Holtzkin. Like, how did that one kind of come together, and how was that difficult to get them to agree to like what rounds were which, or like how did that kind of all come together?
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of back and forth, but that's the thing about ONE as the world's largest martial arts organization. We don't just showcase only MMA, right? We do MMA, we do Muay Thai, we do kickboxing, submission, grappling, and then of course our special mixed rules fights. we're really a true expression of authentic martial arts. And, what really, we like to surprise and delight our fans with these occasional crazy mixed rules fights, right? You take a legendary multiple-time world champion like Nikki Holtzkin in kickboxing, and then you take a legend like Sexyama in MMA. He's been around the block in almost every major promotion. And to put it's a 3-round war, 3 minutes apiece. First round is boxing in 4-ounce gloves. Second round is Muay Thai in 4-ounce gloves, and the third is MMA in the 4-ounce gloves. So it's an intriguing matchup, right? Because at least on paper, we don't know how much wrestling or takedown defense or ground game Nikki has, but at least on paper, he has the first 2 rounds to really go for a KO, and if he doesn't, he's going to be in big trouble by the 3rd round, right? On the flip side, Akiyama is a heavy-handed striker. It's not like he's going to just lay down. I think he still had equal a chance of knocking Holtzkin out in that 1st and 2nd round. But obviously MMA, he's a judo black belt, high level, with a very solid ground game. So it's just a fun, legend versus legend, mixed rules, again, to surprise and delight our fans around the world.
How do those fights come together? Is that something like one of them comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to do one of these mixed rules fights," or like, is that you guys come up with?
We have our weekly matchmaking meetings, and we always, of course, talk about different fights, and always trying to pit the best against the best in every discipline. We spend a crazy amount of time recruiting and retaining the very best martial arts on the planet across all the disciplines. And then, again, one of the things we like to do is surprise and delight our fans. So whether it's a crossover fight between 2 sports, or whether it's a mixed rules fight, we'll talk about it. And so this whole fight came up from the matchmaking team and the marketing team rather as well. Their idea was, hey, let's do a crazy mixed rules fight. It's in Japan. Japan is the home of martial arts in many ways, and the birthplace of mixed martial arts, right? With Shuto back in 1983. And so, and then you think about Pride, you think about, Dream, you think about all that. And the Japanese fans just absolutely love these crazy mixed rules fights and, these surprises.
Because that DJ fight, I think, was the one that really caught everyone's attention when he fought Rotang. Like, after the success of that, like, did you have some fighters reach out and be like, "Hey, if you can match up against another specialist, like, I'd be interested in doing this"?
Actually, surprisingly, no, we didn't have fighters clamoring for it. I think what DJ and Rotang did was truly exceptional, truly extraordinary. Once in a lifetime moment where you get the greatest mixed martial arts of all time, and arguably, the greatest striker at the time, or at this time, head to head. And the rule set was insane. I mean, it's just, hats off to DJ. He could have gotten his head blown off. I think that added to his GOAT status, his legendary status. What other, and again, it goes back to being, one championship being the home of martial arts, authentic martial arts. It's like martial arts should not be actually dictated by only a single rule set, right? Martial arts was first invented to be able to defend yourself, like, on the street or at home when someone's trying to invade you or whatever it is, right? Or at war, hand-to-hand combat. And in those situations, you don't have one fixed rule set. You have to be able to adapt. Fighting at home against a robber is very different than fighting on the street. It's very different than fighting in an elevator. It's very different than fighting in a nightclub. Very different than fighting on a battlefield. So, that kind of ethos, that authenticity of martial arts is what we like to bring to the table and say, look, if you're truly the very best combat sports athlete, you should be able to thrive under any rule set. And that's the opportunity that One Championship gives our athletes, and also gives our fans that, again, these incredible fights, martial arts versus martial arts from different backgrounds, different expertise under different conditions.
One guy I did want to touch on.
Yeah, go ahead.
One guy I did want to touch on is obviously DJ because after that last fight, he said he didn't really know if he was going to fight again. Have you gotten an update from him? Like, do you know if or when?
Yeah, we've been trying to get DJ to a super fight, a super mixed rules fight between DJ and Mikey Musumeci, the current flyweight grappling world champion. I think that would be a spectacular fight as well. I think DJ is kind of more right now in cruise control after having won his last title fight. You know, when he's ready, he'll let us know when he wants to fight. You know, he says he doesn't have the burning, you know, desire, but he hasn't retired yet. So I think DJ has a few more fights left in him, to be honest, to further cement his legendary GOAT status, though. But he needs some big challenges, maybe some crazy mixed rules fights, maybe some, you know, something that really, again, he's the only person in the history of martial arts to have won belts in the two biggest and most prestigious organizations, UFC and ONE, and do it in such a legendary way. Right? Again, if you look at his skill set, forget about titles and all that stuff, but if you just look at skill set, he has by far the most complete skill set of any martial arts, you know, in the history of mankind. Literally, I mean, if you look at his striking, you look at his clinch game, you look at his inside work on elbows and knees in the clinch, you look at his wrestling, you look at his transitions, you look at his submission grappling game, you look at, you know, every aspect. He's completely well-rounded without any holes. And then on top of it, you add in his cardio, his explosiveness, his athleticism. You know, for me, he's the GOAT.
Another guy I want to touch on is obviously Christian Lee. You announced he's coming back in February. Obviously, Angela decided to retire. Like, when did you kind of get the idea that Christian would continue his career then?
You know, I've been in constant contact with the Lee family, with Christian, with Angela, and now Adrian obviously signed with ONE. And you know, Adrian is 17 years old, and we're going to take it slow with him, even though Adrian is already better than Christian and Angela and Victoria were at that age, right? He is the best pound for pound in the family, you know, age adjusted right now. So his potential is absolutely huge. Christian comes back. I'll have to get an update from him, but I think in the next couple months or maybe in the summer. And Adrian will also will make his debut before that. So I think a lot of cards are in the works. Again, we're throwing 61 events, you know, minimum once a week, and then on top of you layer on top of you know, once a month the Amazon shows. So it's a lot. So we just got to slot them both in. But yeah, Christian definitely wants to come back, and obviously, you know, had a year off to grieve and adjust to life without Victoria. But at the same time, he also had the birth of Tommy, his son, a few months ago. So, you know, Christian's just taking a breather, but he's still very young. Christian's, I think, is only 24, 25. So, you know, absolute phenom.
Just two more things. We're in what, year 2 or 3 now of the Amazon deal? Like, has that kind of exceeded expectations for you guys, you and ONE?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 5-year deal, and you know, I know from Amazon's perspective, they're very excited. You know, we've beaten expectations, and they're very excited. So, you know, we've had depending on the card, some cards are stronger, some cards are weaker. So, you know, it's just like, you know, any other promotion, right? But when we come back to the States and we're there for on a regular cadence, first quarterly and then eventually monthly, I think you'll see the numbers really skyrocket and blow out expectations even more.
Just final thing is, with you guys coming back to the States, I know a couple years back you went on that spree of signing like a lot of the guys from North America, like DJ, Sage, like Eddie, Jonathan Kerr. Like, I know you guys have kind of cut back on that lately, but with you guys coming back, like, is that still a plan? Is to like kind of start signing more of those well-known guys here, or do you think like roster is good enough?
Yeah, I think it's just we're always constantly looking for the very best martial arts on the planet, right? Rising stars are current, very, very best. We're not really into the whole model of getting, you know, athletes that are past their prime or you know, kind of like has-beens. You know, we really focus on the very best of the best in the world across every discipline, and so we're always having our eye out. And you know, it's always a touch and go situation, because you just you know, when does next free agent come out, and then, you know, the free agency market. Some free agents we go after, some we don't. It all depends on what we see in that particular individual, male or female.
Well, Chatri, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Hey, thanks so much, Cole. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Take care.